Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ashok. This video is the part of LWC interview preparation series in which I have created two videos where I have covered all basic and intermediate level questions like what is LWC, advantages of using LWC, lifecycle hooks, decorators, lightning data services and many more. So if you have not watched my previous videos, then I would highly recommend you to watch those videos because they will really help you to learn basic and intermediate level LWC interview questions. Alright, so in today's video, we will discuss some advanced level questions. Those you will find in almost every LWC interview. Okay, so let's start with today's first question. That is data communication in LWC components. This is not only a particular question, but this is very important topic in LWC. And I faced this question in every Salesforce LWC interview, and also I asked this question in each and every interview as well, because data communication means pass data between two or more components, and this kind of requirement we used to face in our day-to-day development. So this is a very important topic and you should know each and every corner of this topic. So we can start answering this question is like, data communication means pass data between two or more components, and generally components can be placed in two ways on page or DOM. So the first way is hierarchical, or we can say related components like parent and child, and they will be in the same hierarchy in the DOM. So if you can see in this image over here, so we have a app page over here, and in this app page we have a component A. And in this component we have two child components, component B and component C. So we can say component AB and component AC are in direct relationship. Like over here A is the parent of B and C. Another way is non-hierarchical, means unrelated components. So if you can see in this example, over here we have component A and component D. These components do not have direct relationship. So here we have different approaches to communicate between related components and non-related components. So if we talk about hierarchical components, then we have two approaches over here, parent to child and child to parent. For example, like if I want to pass data from A to B and A to C, or another approach can be like if I want to pass data from B to A or C to A. C to A means child to parent. And if we talk about unrelated components, then we have two approaches over here, Pubsub and lightning messaging services. So in nutshell, we can say we can add components on a page in two ways. First is the related components, means over there components will be in parent-child relationship. Another way is unrelated components. Over there components cannot be in direct relationship, or we can say components are unrelated. So for each way, we have different technique to transfer data from one component to another. So let's discuss one by one. So the first is how to pass data from parent to child component. So to pass data from parent component to child component, first thing is we need to create public properties in child component. How we can create public properties? With the help of API decorator. So parent component can pass data to those properties, and we can pass those properties as an attribute with component HTML tag, and we can also call child components public method from parent component, and we can also assign child components public properties from parent. And when we define property with API decorator, in that case that property work as a reactive property along with public. So let's discuss each point with example. So here I have two components, component A and component B. A is the parent and B is the child. Now if I want to pass data from A component to B, in that case we should have a public property in child component. So here on line number 4 you can see test value with the API decorator. So this is our public property. So as discussed in the last slide, we need to pass that property with the HTML markup tag. So here on line number 2 you can see test hyphen value. So why we have used hyphen over here? Because LWC support kebab case. Kebab case means if we have any capital letter in the word, that will be converted into small with hyphen. So over here we have V capital. So that's why before V we have added a hyphen. So now test hyphen value, and whatever value we want to pass, we can pass from here. So in this example, I have a value variable in component A. So you can see over here on line number 4, the component A. So how it is working? On component A, we have a value property on line number 4, and we are passing this value property over here on line number 2 in the HTML with the component tag. And in B component, we have a public property. So this is how you can pass values from parent component to child component with public properties. And this will also work in reactive behavior, means if the value of this value variable will get changed, in that case value in the child component will automatically update it. For example, on the line number 9 we have a method button click. So when this method will call, in that case this variable value will get updated, and due to reactive behavior this child component will also notify, and the value of this child component will also get updated. Another way is we can call child components public method in parent component. So if you can see in the child components over here, we have a public method test method, and on the parent component you can see over here on line number 6 we have a method call child method, and on line number 7 we are calling this child components public method from parent. How we are calling that one? With the help of query selector. Why we use query selector? To find the DOM element. So in our component we have added child component as a tag, and with the help of query selector we can select that tag, and then after we can call whatever public method we want to call, and I'm passing the parameter also from here, so that parameters can be received over here in the param1. Okay, so this is how in two ways we can pass data from parent to child, like with the properties and with the methods. Next we have how to pass data from child component to parent component. So to pass data from child component to parent component, we will use custom events. So the first step is create and dispatch event. So on the child component, we need to create a custom event, and then after we need to dispatch that custom event. So if you can see in this image over here on the line number 6, we are creating a custom event. In this custom event, we can pass two parameters. First is the event name and second is the payload. So our event name is name change, and in payload we are passing the name in detail property. And on line number 9, we are dispatching this custom event. And the second step is listen to an event. So we can add event listeners in two ways, via HTML markup, or we can say declarative approach, and another one is using JS add event listener, and we can say programmatic approach. So if we talk about declarative approach, then you can see in this HTML file on line number 2, we are calling our child component, and with child component we are registering our event listener also with on prefix. So event name is name change, so it will call on name change, and our event handler is handle name change. And if we talk about programmatic approach, then you can see in this JS file on line number 6, this is how we can register our event listener with the JavaScript code. So over here also we can pass two parameters like event name and handler name. So name change is the event name, and this dot handle name change is the handler name. So whenever child component will dispatch an event, in that case this handler method will directly call, and we can get data in that event dot detail property. And we should always try to use declarative approach, because here we need to write less code and we do not need to take care about unregistering of event listener. Okay, so in nutshell, if you are going to pass data from child component to parent component, in that case you need to create a custom event in child component, and you need to dispatch that custom event from the child component. And in parent component, you should register that event listener either with the programmatic approach or either with the declarative approach. So whenever child component will dispatch any event, in that case parent component's handler method will automatically get called, and whatever data we passed as a payload over there, we can receive in that detail property. So if you can see over here on the line number 8, we have a handler method, and in this event.detail property we will receive all the data that we have passed from the child component. Okay. Next we have what is Pubsub in LWC. So as of now we have discussed like how we can do communication between the related components or the components which are in the same DOM hierarchy, like from child to parent component or parent to child component. Now let's discuss about how we can do communication between non-related components. So there are two ways to communicate between the components which are not in the same DOM hierarchy, or we can say unrelated components. So first way is the Pubsub. So we can say Pubsub is a singleton library that is already created by the Salesforce developers team. So it is a simple JS file, so we need to download it from Salesforce server, and in our project we can use it as a utility component. Like we can create a component with the name of Pubsub, and we can delete the HTML file, and we can paste whatever code we got from the Salesforce server Pubsub library. Okay. Next we have Pubsub follows publisher and subscriber model. So there are two things, publisher and subscriber. Publisher means who will push the changes. Subscriber means you will get notification when new changes will push. And Pubsub will work on single page. And there are multiple methods available in the Pubsub library, like register listener, unregistered listener, unregister all listeners, and fire event. So let's discuss on an example like how you can use Pubsub library in your LWC component. So the first thing is like we need to create a utility component, and then after wherever we want to use this Pubsub library, we need to import that utility component. So if you can see on this line number 2 in this image, we have imported this Pubsub component, and over here we have imported this register listener and unregister all listeners. And in connected callback, we have registered an event that is name change, and we have provided our change handler method. So this is how we can subscribe a event, and whenever this event will be fired from any other component, in that case this handler method will directly call. And if you can see in this right side image, this is the another component, and if you want to send data to the another component, in that case we need to create a custom event, and over here you need to pass event name and payload, and then after you need to displace that custom event, and at last you need to use fire event. This is the method of Pubsub library, and you need to pass page reference, event name, and whatever data you pass to that event. So this is how you can use Pubsub library to communicate between non-related components. From the publisher side, you will need to create a custom event, and you need to displace that event, and at the subscriber side you need to register the listeners over here. Okay. Next we have what is LMS, Lightning Messaging Services. So LMS is the another way to do communication between the non-related components. This is introduced by Salesforce in Winter 20 release. Earlier we had only one way to communicate between non-related components, that is Pubsub, but there were few limitations with Pubsub. Like you can do communication on LWC to LWC components, and you can do communication only on a single page, and that was not a perfect solution by design also. So that's why Salesforce launched Lightning Messaging Services. So what advantages we have with Lightning Messaging Services? Let's say about them. So the first advantage is, with the help of Lightning Messaging Services, we can do communication between cross UI frameworks. Means we can pass data from LWC to Aura, or Aura to Visualforce, and Visualforce to Aura, and Visualforce to LWC, if they are in the same DOM hierarchy or on the same browser. Next advantage is it works across namespace and with multiple pages. Like if you'll have multiple pages on the same browser, in that case with the help of LMS we can do communication over there. And we can say Lightning Messaging Service is based on the Lightning Message channels. This is a new metadata type in Salesforce that is introduced for the LMS only. Here in this video, I'm not going into the implementation of Lightning Messaging Services, but if you want, then I can create a separate video on this. So please do let me know in the comments if you require a separate detailed video on Lightning Messaging Services. But in nutshell, we can say if you want to do cross component communication or cross UI platform communication, in that case LMS is the first preference. Next is how to pass data to grandparent component in LWC. I have included this question because I have seen this question in many interviews. So let's see how you can answer this question. So you can say with the help of custom events, we can pass data from child component to grandparent component. But this is not a default behavior of custom events, because custom events cannot go out of the shadow root boundary of the component. So in that case, LWC provided two different properties, that is event.bubbles and event.composed. So whenever we want to pass data out of the shadow boundary, in that case we need to pass bubble and compose equals to true with the custom events. So let's see with the example. So here we have a child component, and if we want to pass data to the grandparent, in that case we need to pass bubbles and compose equals to true. And if only we want to pass to the direct parent, in that case we do not require these both properties. But if you want to pass data upper to the parent, in that case you need to set bubbles and compose equals to true, because bubbles make sure like this event should be triggered at the top of DOM hierarchy, and composed make sure like this event can be triggered out of the shadow root boundary. And in the grandparent component, whenever we are calling the parent component, over there with the component HTML tag, we can pass event listener like this. Okay, so this thing like event we need to register in the child, and we need to pass event handler in the grandparent with the parent HTML. Okay, so this is the one way to pass data to the grandparent from the child. But this is not recommended, because in this case we have exposed our events to the out of shadow boundary. So this may create conflicts and performance issue also. So for such kind of requirement, we should use LMS instead of custom events, because LMS is the perfect implementation for such kind of requirements. Okay. Next we have what is SLDS, Salesforce Lightning Design System. So we can say SLDS is a CSS framework in which we can get icon, color palettes and fonts. And it helps us to build application with look and feel of Lightning experience without writing a single line of CSS code. It means whenever we are going to do custom UI development with the help of LWC and Aura, in that case, we do not need to write any CSS over there. Like with the help of SLDS, we can write pitch perfect UI in the Lightning experience without any custom CSS. And it is continuously updated by Salesforce. So we should use these SLDS features over there in our custom development. Next we have how to use third-party JavaScript libraries in Lightning Web Components. So sometimes in real-world applications we need to use many third-party JavaScript libraries like jQuery. So jQuery is the very famous JavaScript library for the DOM manipulation. So if you want to add any third-party library in LWC component, in that case you need to follow these steps. So the first step is download the library from the third-party library source. Okay. Second step is upload that library to your org as a static resource. So if you have single file, in that case you can upload that single file, and if you have multiple files, in that case you can create a zip file and you can upload that zip file to the Salesforce org as a static resource. Third step is in the LWC component you will use platform resource loader module to load scripts and styles. So let's discuss an example. So we have a component resource loader demo, and in this component we want to use jQuery plugin. The first step is I have already downloaded that jQuery plugin from the jQuery website, and second step is like I have uploaded that jQuery plugin as a static resource. And now in LWC component, if you can see on the line number 2 or on line number 3, on line number 2 I have imported that jQuery plugin from the static resources, and on line number 3 I'm importing load script module from platform resource loader. And if you can see on the line number 7, over here with the help of load script method, I'm calling that plugin in LWC component. So after loading this component, we can use that component features or methods over here. So if you can see on this line number 9, I'm doing DOM manipulation over here. Okay, so this was a easiest example, and if you need to use any kind of third-party library in your LWC component, then you can use like this. Okay. Next we have how to check object permissions in LWC. This means, let's say you are writing a custom component to create or update object functionality and you want to show buttons as per the user permission. So you will require object permission in LWC to control the buttons visibility. Okay. So there is no direct way in LWC to get the object permissions directly, but there is an alternative. That is, we need to import get object info from UI object info API module. So in this imported method, we will get each and everything related to that object. So if you can see in this image over here on line number 2, I'm importing this method get object info from UI object info API module. Also I'm getting contact object name over here, and on the line number 6 with the wire decorator I'm calling get object info method, and I'm passing object API name as a contact. So this is how I will get all the contact object information in contact permissions with the help of get object info method. So this will return all the fields and the permissions related to that object and everything. So this is how I can add conditions in my component. Next we have how to create multilingual components in LWC. Multilingual component means which can work with multiple languages. So in Salesforce, if you want to create multilingual components, in that case, we need to take help of custom labels. So if you can see in this example, and if you will write component in this way, like if you will put the text hard-codedly over here, like student name and class name, and if user have selected different language other than English, in that case also, these texts will be same. So if you want to create components which select user selected language, in that case we need to follow these steps. So the first step is we need to create custom labels in Salesforce, and we need to add language specific text also over there in the custom labels. After that we need to use those custom labels in our LWC components. So if you can see in this left side image on line number 3 to 5, here I am importing the custom labels. So like student name, class name and DOB. So I have created these 3 custom labels in my Salesforce org, and I have imported all these 3 custom labels, and I have stored all these custom labels into label object. And now if you can see in the right side image, I have removed my static text and I have added these labels over here. Okay. So this is how you can create multilingual components in LWC by importing custom labels in LWC component. Okay. Next we have how to get current user ID in LWC without Apex. So if you want to get current logged in user ID in LWC, then this is the way. Like you need to use @salesforce/user/id, and you can import your current logged in user ID in the LWC component. Next we have how to get record ID in detail page in LWC. So if you want to get current record ID in detail page, in that case, you can declare record ID property with the API decorator. So this is the reserve keyword in the LWC, and you need to add that API decorator with the record ID. So this is how you can get current record ID in the detail page in LWC components. That's it for this video. If you want a detailed separate video on any of these questions and topics, then please do let me know in the comments. I will create a detailed video on that topic. In next video, I will cover some JavaScript questions. Those are often asked in LWC interviews. So please like this video and subscribe my YouTube channel. I will see you in next video.